Welcome to Business as Unusual. This is the live stream where we explore the pressing issues and emerging trends that are shaping the business landscape. I'm Kathy Steele, the CEO of Red Caffeine, and your host today. And for those of you unfamiliar with Red Caffeine, we're a growth consultancy, which means we build and execute go-to-market plans for ambitious mid-market companies. Examples of the work we do are things like brand repositioning, new product or service launches, tech enablement consulting, but the vast majority of the things that we do at RC wrap around building revenue generation systems. In high-performing organizations, sales just isn't about closing deals. It's about building a repeatable and scalable framework and measurable growth engine. That requires a strategic framework grounded in systems thinking. When sales and marketing are aligned to a company's strategic pillars, revenue, customer experience, operational efficiency, and enterprise value, it becomes a driver of long-term business success, not just short-term wins. Today, we're bringing two RC experts to share their point of views on the role sales professionals and marketers will play in the future, as well as today, in using sales intelligence to make better business decisions. Welcome to our first timers, Kayla Portillo, our VP of Integrated Marketing, and Dayna Kramer, a growth consultant at Red Caffeine. So I'd love for you guys to each introduce yourselves a little bit more specifically. Kayla, why don't you, share a little bit about your career as well as something interesting that's not on your bio.
Sure. Thanks, Kathy. So I'm Kayla Portillo, VP of Integrated Marketing with Red Caffeine. I've been working as a marketing manager for about 20-ish years now, and have worked both as an account manager, as an in-house marketing manager, and really my role at Red Caffeine is to help connect the dots across all the different channels that we're working in to help our clients meet their strategic business goals and growth objectives, and doing that through both showing data that's going to be meaningful to inform marketing campaigns and also that will empower sales to close more business. What you won't see in my bio is I am an avid dance fitness enthusiast. So that is how I let loose when I'm not working. So that's my fun hobby.
I love that. I love that. I'm a avid dance dishwasher. So
There
when
you
I'm
go.
doing chores that I don't like to do, I'm always dancing through them. So Dayna,
Perfect.
you take it away, introduce yourself, and tell us something fun that's not on your bio.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Kramer. I'm a growth advisor here at Red Caffeine, and I have spent pretty much my entire career in a sales role, starting from back in the days where I sat in a little cubicle on a dialer system and made millions of cold calls in a week, to where I'm at now, where I play a more strategic role in my clients and prospects' lives, where I'm getting more intimate with their business. I do a lot of networking, and I'm a part of a group called Women in Manufacturing that I'm very proud to be part of, and I sit on our Illinois leadership team. And then something that's not on the bio, I really love to sing. And when I was young, I used to, sing in my room to my boombox, and I thought I was great. But never really told anybody about it until I tried out for it was a grade school play, Annie, and I was just trying out for the choir. I thought, oh, I'll just be in the choir. And when I came back to school the next day, I had a call back for Annie. So I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not imagining this. I'm actually good at singing too. So pretty much doing karaoke these days. No stages anymore, but that was just something cool and fun that happened to me.
That's so fun. I mean, I love to think of myself as a singer, but there would be people that are in the car with me when I am singing that would debate that. So, all right, well, let's get jumping off. As we mentioned in the, kind of introduction of this, we are really seeing a lot of opportunity for sales to become this much more strategic discipline. I mean, the introduction of so much technology, the introduction of AI, automation, sales enablement tools that exist today allow for salespeople to really elevate out of that, meet somebody, close business, into a more strategic role in their organization. And so we've got a slide that sort of runs you through the different types of business uh, pillars, like the strategic pillars run down or run across the top, like growth potential, customer health, data, and decision making. And then some of the sample metrics are things that are really business metrics a lot of organizations are measuring within their business. So I want to, start by asking, like, what are we seeing in the marketplace, and even in our own team at Red Caffeine that supports this shift towards a more knowledge worker sort of scenario versus just somebody that is trying to dial for dollars, as Dayna started in her career. So Kayla, why don't you, kick us off and give us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely. I think, as more and more technology is being introduced into the sales process, we're also just seeing the expectations of those sales team leaders growing as well. And so, being measured on things like pipeline value and pipeline velocity, and then having the data to be able to equip their teams to actually help move the needle on those more business growth focused metrics. And so I think one of the things we're going to dig into more today is really how to use the technology at your disposal to get at that information in an actionable way. But I think across the board, both at the sales leadership level and the frontline sales level, the expectation is really scaled up in terms of being able to recognize trends, being able to work more strategically, and being able to really move the needle on business growth goals with all of your sales activities.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that even this gives, sales professionals opportunities to elevate their career trajectory and really, get a great seat at the table when businesses or their leadership team are planning for growth initiatives. Dayna, why don't you, talk about what you're seeing in your role or as you're speaking to clients? Or
Yeah, sure. I mean, in my day-to-day role at Red Caffeine, I do manage our sales dashboard, and so we've made a lot of improvements to that just even this year on getting more clear about the top of funnel activities that are happening before you're getting to that actual discovery meeting and then going to proposal and truly understanding that when that cycle length, how important it is to understand so that we can get to that close, right? That's what it's all about. And just identifying the right fit, um, types of prospects for us. So
yeah,
but
and I
I
think
totally agree with everything Kayla said too. She hit it on the nail there.
yeah, I feel like, I'm even seeing leaders really bring up where they sit in terms of their EBITDA, or really having sales training around understanding gross margin and lifetime value. These are really, incredible financial drivers of our business. I mean, it's one thing to close somebody, but to be able to maintain that business over a length of years, there's a lot of opportunity cost in winning new business. So those are really value adds for sales professionals to understand and be able to bring to the table.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. When I first started my role here at Red Caffeine, I wasn't familiar with EOS, and so the entrepreneurial operating system, and that has, I wouldn't say I'm a CFO or anything, but really understanding that has given me, it's easier to get a seat at the table with the C-suite leaders, even though I don't yet have that title, since I have more of an understanding of their business and what it truly takes to make a dollar.
Yeah, I think that, really, I remember being at a DePaul event, and that was one of the things, like really understanding financials was one of the things that DePaul students talked about being so value add as they got into their career to really understand forecasting and budgets and reconciliation, all the fun things that we do, at an account level, but really, really strong business skill building tools. So I'm going to switch gears and start to kind of talk more specifically about CRM. I think that in our experience, we run the gamut to clients that have and are using technology and really have more enabled sales teams. But on the flip side, I think a lot of our clients, a lot of what we see in the mid-market is clients that have a CRM or don't have a CRM and are using some other tool to track sales information. But the sentiment still feels that they think it's kind of a necessary evil versus a business asset. So I'd love to have you both talk about where the biggest mind shift we try to create around CRM use or sales tracking. So Kayla, why don't you kind of lead this one off and tell us what you're seeing that we're doing across clients or in some of the examples that you have.
Yeah, definitely. I think, in general, we know sales reps are incredibly busy and they have a million things competing for their time. And so it's easy to see how, the ask to do, track this in one more place or make sure everything that you do is updated here. It feels like a big ask and it could feel like a necessary evil. And I think the mind shift we're trying to achieve is really looking at your CRM like you would any other technology. It's a tool that enables you to do your job more strategically, more efficiently, helps you free up the time for the things that you actually care about and that are actually important to your role. And, there's a lot that goes into setting it up so that it can work in that way. But once you have a kind of implemented CRM that's adopted and used, it really is that tool that makes everything else easier. Um, just thinking about it like any other technology advancement, like moving from fax to email, for example. It's like who wants to go back to fax? You really don't want to do that. Getting to that level with your CRM where it makes everything else that you do that much more efficient and that much more productive, is really the mind shift we're trying to show people is the potential of it. It might take a little while to get there. It takes a little while to build the habits, but I think foundationally it does take a while to set up a CRM in a way that's truly useful for your business. And so taking the time to do that right can really enable those benefits and productivity gains that we want our clients to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such an incredible point is really getting those use cases sort of talked about as you're thinking about setting up the CRM. And I think Dayna, you had a firsthand preview in terms of your role at Red Caffeine and some of the things that you've done with our CRM. So why don't you talk about your experience in terms of striking the balance to data collection that's really meaningful and important versus it being a chore.
Yeah, I mean, if your CRM is feeling like a chore, you're doing it wrong, right? So, I think we found that just really looking at the lead sources to start understanding that we are truly putting our efforts into the right places. So even just starting with your metrics and looking at, what's working and what's not, because once you start to show sales rep that this data is going to equip them to make the right types of decisions and uses of their time, then it helps them sell smarter and faster. So, when we started customizing our dashboards to show those leading indicators, like we were talking about earlier, deal velocity and the activities that are happening, it becomes not just a closed one report, right? It becomes more of like that, like your plan, your dashboard, what everything is rooted in.
Yeah, yeah. I think we talk about like we scorecard a ton of things that, as you mentioned, EOS is the operating system that we use at Red Caffeine, but we've always been financially transparent as well. So we're looking at a lot of metrics in our organization, and sometimes there's just too many. So even, being willing to say like, hey, let's like throw out some of these because they're just not really helping us do our job better. But you got to start with somewhere in terms of what you're tracking. And then sometimes you want to like start tracking something differently. I mean, I think we talked about the fact that we're tracking, more of our sales touches in the early stages of the funnel in the last year or so. And it's really helping us understand like how much time it takes to actually build a trusted advisory or consultancy relationship with a prospect, because they are not going to ultimately hire us, in a week. I mean, it has happened, but it's more rare. We've had some people stay in the pipeline for a very, very long time, and so have our clients. They have a very long sales cycle. So what are some of those types of metrics that really inform, we're going to need to have 7 to 12 conversations with this person. How do we, keep up and keep track of staying engaged while somebody is in that decision-making process? All right, well, we're going to flip gears a little bit to the actual scoreboard, and and talk a little bit about some real world scenarios that are coming out of our own experiences. So we've got a couple of different data sets to look at on a couple of slides, and what we want to kind of step through is, what we're looking at, here. This is pulled from sales information in a CRM. So what we're looking at, and then what would we do in terms of reacting to this data. So it's, one thing to report something in a scoreboard, but it's, another thing to actually pull an insight out of it and have an action plan to either, activate on an opportunity that you're seeing in your sales data, or fix something that might not be performing as well. So this first one is around product market fit. I think at its core, we think about things like at the Amazon e-commerce experience, and there is never a time you buy something on Amazon that it doesn't serve up a complimentary product or an add-on, or what other people have purchased when they purchase the item that you're going to purchase. So, if you set your thinking there, let's talk a little bit about this, what we're seeing on this dashboard. Kayla, why don't you take us through some of the things that you would do by seeing these types of insights in clients' sales data?
Definitely. Yeah, I think, obviously seeing kind of which bundles are leading to the larger deals is super helpful. And I think understanding also that the combinations that people are typically buying, what's a small upsell versus what's a bigger lift. And one of the other things that I've looked at previously with clients is like, what is that sequence? What product do they start, and what pain point motivates them to go for the add-on? And then how can we bundle those solutions to come to them with a more complete package that also happens to correlate to a larger deal size earlier in the sales process? And one of the things that I think is so useful about this type of visual is, if, depending on your average sales cycle length, being able to look at this sort of data over time and really spot instantly and visually trends in your data, they're going to help you inform how you go to market with certain products and certain bundles. Not only helps sales just have a more solutions oriented conversation, but also helps marketing really dig into, what are we pushing and how, and how is that messaging working around our products and the solutions that we're bringing to market.
Yeah, I love that. I think, you also could look at an underperforming, like it looks like SKU A and B are sort of underperforming. Like, could you potentially team up SKU A and QC or D to,
Hmm.
help, reduce inventory if it's a product, or, make a less popular service offering or product offering more popular because you're bundling it with something that's been purchased more frequently. Dayna, anything, you want to share here on this analysis?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as someone in more of like a business development role, I feel like the first thing that I would notice is as a sales rep, I'm probably going to be wanting to spend a little bit more time with those SKU C and SKU D buyer types. So, looking to my CRM to find, either customers that haven't bought in a while that might have bought these products, or just the different types of customers that are buying these products. And I happen to have access, thanks to Red Caffeine, to a fantastic tool called LinkedIn Sales Navigator, where you can even take it a step further and start to look at building out personas, building out lead filters. You can even go into your lead filters and look for things like, okay, where are some of my good, strong clients that I'm working with, and who are their second connections? Because if they're already working with me and they already know, like, and trust me, chances are if I ask a client to make an introduction to that second connection, then that's going to be a lot easier of an in for me. And oh, by the way, you can save those search criterias and get notifications directly to your email. Or, I mean, I pretty much live in LinkedIn, if you know me, so I'm, kind of seeing those in real time. But just more ways to add in a little automation to make life a little easier on you.
Yeah, sell smarter, not I don't know.
Harder.
Yeah, exactly. Sell
Qualify
smarter.
hard, close easy.
Right, exactly, exactly. All right, so we've got another scenario to step through, and that one is, sales funnel velocity. So we talked a little bit about that as we were, talking early. It is hard, and I think that this is especially for our clients that are really starting to look at metrics in a more strategic way. A lot of times they'll say, we really don't have an idea how long something stays in any particular phase of the funnel. And so what we usually say was, let's pick a number. Let's pick a, rational guess as to what that sales funnel velocity should look like. Set a benchmark for each stage of the funnel, and then we measure it, and then we get it, a lot more realistic about how we look at it, once we've got some information. So in this capacity, Kayla, what would be some of the things that we might do in terms of solutions to improve funnel velocity so that we're getting closer to the targets versus what is actually happening?
Yeah, I think, looking at what are some tactics that you can do, what questions are you not answering in that demo that are stalling people out in that phase? What might be missing from your proposal, or what might be tripping people up in your proposal that you could maybe get ahead of so that people can go through that phase faster? And I'm working with a client right now where we were having conversations around what are the criteria of those opportunities that fit closer to your ideal state, that we can try to build more of those opportunities and kind of structure our deals around ones that, have indicators that they might have more velocity in that sales funnel. So, we talk a lot about our ideal client profile and our persona targeting, but really looking at, like, what are those great fit opportunities that we do really well, that we can deliver on quickly, and that are easy for our buyers to, like, close and move on. And trying to build out campaigns around that, like, ideal opportunity set as well. So I think there's a mix of sales enablement, like optimizing the conversations and assets materials that we're using at each of these stages, and also outbound, like, how are we trying to build deals that match more closely to our ideal funnel timing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, this changes over time. Sometimes you're, seeing people stall at the demo stage, or you're getting ghosted in the proposal stage. But if you're not measuring like specifics around each phase of the funnel, even more top of funnel metrics that we're not really showing here, it just feels like sales is broken. And then you really don't know where to lean into. So, Dana, what's on your mind when you look at this kind of information?
Yeah, sure. I mean, thinking about things like in the proposal or demo phase, like where is the drop off? Are there patterns? Are there ways that we can make sure that we're following up? Is that what happens? I mean, I'm in a sales role, and I can think even just now when I started with Red Caffeine, I was kind of more on that top of funnel part of the role where I was just bringing people in, qualifying them, and then handing them off to, an SME to kind of take them through the journey. And now that I've, grown within my role, I would look at this as ways to, we talked even earlier this year about being ready now as a part of our ICP. So just knowing when to even get them to proposal. Is now the time for us to even have a proposal or a demo? Are they, truly ready to sign a contract or work with us, or is this just something that they're maybe interested in doing? And there are lots of ways to, make sure when you're having those early on conversations directly ask, is this something, what's going to happen if you don't do this? And if they don't have a good answer for that, then that's a pretty good indicator that you should probably be focusing your time with another prospect and just
Yeah,
continue to nurture them.
I think even, like I would say, one other thing that we found, and we don't really do demos per se, but we have, as competition has become, bigger for like we're competing more in a lot of the cases that with prospects. So being able to demonstrate beyond a case study what we can bring in terms of the value add that other agencies may not be able to bring to the table has been something we've introduced because we were seeing, more competition. In years past, we were the only, and people were either choosing us or choosing nothing. So, that kind of by measuring these different funnel phases and what's happening with them have allowed us to evolve and pivot when things, that used to work are no longer working for us. So, all right, one more to look at is the next slide is, one of my favorites and really the place where I find people don't have as much enthusiasm around. I think that a lot of times the excitement for sales is around new logos, like get us new logos, and what you potentially miss is the opportunity to grow your relationship with existing customers or recover a relationship with existing customers by looking at, sort of buying trajectory and history insights. And so this one is, looking at kind of a lapsed customer kind of sales strategy. So Kayla, why don't you step us through some things that you've done with this type of a data set?
Yeah, typically we're starting by looking at like you do like a retrospective, you look at a year over year to see, where customers that were say maybe like if you have like A, B, and C tiers, they were an A customer last year, but they're down to a C customer this year, or they've fallen off completely. And you kind of do that retrospective and you identify what the points are that are actually meaningful to you. So I did this with a client recently where I looked year over year and their feedback was, well, year over year isn't really like I care if I haven't heard from them in 18 months.
Mhm.
On the flip side, I had a client previously who was like, if I haven't heard from them in a month, we're in trouble. And so, it really depends on the business, but look at that data and figure out what the indicators are that are most relevant for you. Then you can proactively build those into your CRM dashboards. So rather than waiting till the end of the year to realize someone has completely fallen off your radar or an account has, ordered only half this year of what they ordered last year and you have no idea why, you know, build in those indicators proactively where, okay, it's been 6 months and we haven't had a quote request come through for them, or it's been a year and they won't take any of our calls. And sometimes it's as simple as that person moved on, you've got a new contact there, but you're finding out earlier in the process when you can still do something about it. To your point, Kathy, to like salvage that relationship or kind of rebuild or strengthen that relationship versus being at the end of the year looking retrospectively and seeing, things that have completely fallen off when it's too late for you to do anything about it. So I'm a big advocate of doing a longer term view, pulling out the indicators that are actually relevant to your sales cycle and your markets and your customers, and then building those in proactively so that you can see on a regular basis exactly what this chart shows, who's at risk, or who's approaching an at-risk threshold, and then, taking whatever actions you can to get ahead of those.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the lowest hanging fruit of your sales process. And then it also is, a lot easier to expand your offering or services with a customer that likes you and trusts you already versus to sell a new one. So it's a really, really um, big opportunity for most organizations to lean in. Dayna, what would you, want to share here?
I mean, I'm gonna bring it back to at Red Caffeine. We don't really think of our retention clients as just like a customer service opportunity, as you will. They're really thought of too as sales opportunities. So I think when you're looking at lapsed customers or even customers that you really wanted to win and you didn't win, there's still opportunities to invite them to those key industry events that are happening, letting them know about articles that you've seen or case studies, things that can, add value to them to still keep them warm and fuzzy and hopefully bring them back over to the win, right? So just again, making it not about just customer service, but really thinking of it as a sales opportunity.
Yeah, I think too the one thing that we use these types of insights for is expansion of capabilities, like what is going on with our clients across the board or the marketplace across the board that we're not bringing to the table. We just got a piece of feedback in our customer satisfaction surveys that talked about this end-to-end solution that we're providing so that you are not having a revenue dip because something else has risen to the top as a priority for a client, because you're in front of where they need to invest, and you're bringing services or solutions to support them in that journey, because we're all as businesses focused on different priorities year over year. How do you stay kind of in front of what is most important to your client base at the time? So, all right, that was some great information sharing. I'm going to move on to a question around clients, with shifting from reporting to really sharing insights. So, how are we thinking about automation, dashboards, and AI? How are we helping clients really modernize their sales ops without overwhelming the team? I mean, we're already seeing pushback on using CRM. What are those types of things that we're doing to help them, really adopt these technologies and solutions?
Yeah, I think, kind of getting to one of the points we made earlier, so much of it goes into how you architect the CRM and how you set it up to reflect, I think what you mentioned earlier, Kathy, of like those actual day-to-day use cases. Like, how are people selling now, and how can we have our technology reflect their current process versus asking them to completely adopt a new way of selling, while also, hitting their metrics and KPIs. And I think there's the architecture piece of like building in lead scoring models, building in strategic automation, but then also to the point, Dayna, you were making earlier around, if you consider your CRM mature, you're using it wrong. There are so many connections, so many automations. You can connect your email, you can connect your LinkedIn, you can automate a lot of these things so that the data entry doesn't become a time suck. So, I would say my two main pieces would be set up the CRM in a way that really reflects the way that you sell, and then take every advantage to kind of set it up and make it as easy as possible so that the data part doesn't really become like a tedious chore. Because I think at the end of the day, everyone can agree, a CRM is only as good as the data within it. And so if that data isn't getting in and it isn't accurate, if it isn't trusted, then your CRM is never going to be really utilized or useful to your teams. So anything you can do to kind of set it up in a way that it's going to work efficiently for everyone, I think is worth investing time in.
Yeah, Dayna, I know she's got a million tricks to the trade for little extensions in her
Oh yeah.
automation process.
I do love my extensions and my robots. Sometimes I feel like I talk to them more than my team and my family, but we'll save that for you want to talk offline about that, we can hit me up. I'm happy to. But I mean, really, if your CRM is feeling like a junk drawer, you kind of want to start by just asking your team, getting aligned on what you wish it could do for you, right? Like how do you want this to work for you, and really starting by cleaning out your data, making sure that your data is true. I mean, data in, data out, right? So you
Yeah,
just want it to feel like a partner, not a punishment. So you can start with one thing. If you don't, like we talked about earlier, there still are a lot of companies that aren't even using. My husband works for a company right now. They're a manufacturer. They do not have an ERP. They do not have a CRM. They do not have a lot of processes. So even just starting with one thing, like if you do have a CRM and making sure that there are tasks set up for all your opportunities could be like that first start to having it work as your partner and not your punishment.
yeah. I mean, so give us a few of your shortcuts, though. You do use extensions a lot to shortcut some processes. So what is like something that you love?
So I love setting up templates in Gmail. You can if I we use Gmail here, but I'm sure every platform now is pretty much the same, right? They're all so similar. So just setting up some, quick email templates that you can set, or CRMs also have that option too, to have them embedded within the CRM. So after you have that lunch or meet up with someone, you can quickly get that email out to them to continue the conversation. We use a tool here at Red Caffeine called Seamless AI. You can do things like import leads. Like if you get we just got a new lead in the system the other day, and it was really nice to just be able to click on their website and hit a little button and import it right to Salesforce so that I don't have to add in all of that data manually. And another tool that I use since I do a lot of networking is called Wave AI. So it's a recording tool. I use it at public networking events to kind of be able to stay present and be able to get a takeaway right from this app. And then I can also take that recording, and sometimes I'll put it into Chat GPT afterwards and do things like give my team an update on the things I learned about whatever industry, trade, or trend I'm attending, or help me give a better LinkedIn post that's more in line with what was actually happening. And just like I said, it keeps me more present, and I don't feel like I have to be taking notes all the time. So those are just a few. I have many more, so
Yeah.
always happy to have a chat about those things.
Yeah. I mean, and I think we love kind of learning from each other too, in terms of how we're using these tools, because, I feel like every time I do something that takes a lot of manual time, then I'm like, all right, how should I have done this using automation and AI? And then I'm like architecting my process moving forward. So, it's
Yeah.
also just about continuing to kind of build on some of these tool sets.
One
Um,
thing I do want to call out really quickly though too is while these tools are all great, like you as the user still need to stay in control of things like AI. So that means like checking your resources. I mean, if you have a paid version of Chat GPT, you can ask it to source things for you now so that you're getting the right data and accurate information. But I'm a millennial, so I come from a world where when I was in high school, we had to have three references for everything we quoted. So I do like to just make sure that I say check your work. You want to be AI assisted, not AI replaced, because it's not going to take over the world, but the people who know how to use it are probably going to take over the world. So.
Yeah, great point. I do want to circle back to kind of an old school templating thing that we've done across a few clients in terms of being able to respond maybe to a lapsed customer campaign where we've created more personalized looking emails through automation. Now they're still connected to a sales rep, but they're not having to physically go in and create 100 hey, how's it going? You haven't ordered from us in a while, like emails that we're able to automate some of those things. But when somebody is a ready buyer, we're able to respond personally. So, using automation AI in places where it makes sense, and then using personalization and human interface to kind of get something to the next stage. So to kind of build on that, one of the things that I think that we do well is really, especially from the marketing side, how do we make sure that we're not working in these silos? It's like one of the worst things I hear in the sales process is I don't ever use anything that marketing's created, or they don't understand, they're not in touch with what we're going through in the sales process. So how do we, suggest pushing this information to reps for a more strategic approach to selling? Kayla, you want to share a couple thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of asking sales for their wish lists. Like what do you just wish you would have you have? What are you doing repetitively that what are you copy pasting over and over again that you wish you didn't have to do? And I'm working with a client now where we're piloting a CRM automation project where we're essentially asking like who's got something that's working really well, who's got a cold opener that just nails it every time, who's got a really great lapsed customer outreach, or who's got a great just checking in on this proposal email that you feel really good about, and then getting that to marketing, templatizing it, and then making it accessible within the CRM. But I think a lot of times what comes out of those conversations too are like, what does sales wish they knew? Like when they're looking at their list of every opportunity, every prospect, everyone they're working, would it be helpful to know who was on your website this morning? Would it be helpful to know who spent 5 minutes on your pricing page last week? Would it be helpful to know, which companies are clicking on your LinkedIn ads most frequently? Like, what information would you actually take and act on? And what we don't want to do from a marketing perspective is just send them tons of useless signals. We want to understand, if I told you this, would it change how you approach your day? Would it change what you focused on today? And if yes, then great. Let's build in that proactive notification. Let's get you a Slack notification or an email or a task in your CRM saying, XYZ things happened. So here's a suggested follow-up for this account or this prospect. But I feel like what a lot of CRMs do is they track everything. And so I know I've like been in that position where I go look at a record in Salesforce and you see they received this email, they clicked on this email, they opened this email, they visited this website, they visited 3 websites. It's like that doesn't tell me anything, but a summary at the top saying, this person just engaged for 15 minutes with content that you sent. Great, that tells me something, but
Right.
like this laundry list of like tasks is not useful. So really bridging that gap between what data are we seeing, what data does sales actually care about, and then packaging it to them in a way that is accessible. It's not one more place they have to check, but we're meeting them where they are, where they're already spending their time, with useful intelligence that can help them prioritize their outreach and follow-ups.
Yeah, I mean, I love co-collaborating with sales teams because at the end of the day, they're the one that has to make this marketing message or this positioning or this tool work in market. And when
Mhm.
it is working, like getting understanding of what are people most responding to, or what's most interesting. And then when they aren't working, like what is the feedback there? So how do we tweak and improve our campaigns? Because those are the people that will be able to bring back those real world insights. Dayna, what's on your mind on that question?
Yeah, I just kind of piggybacking off what Kayla said on the sales side of that, when you have a real alignment between your sales and marketing team, and the sales side not only understands what marketing is doing, but also what their part is going to be in that,
Right.
so that we can plan and prioritize, because marketing spends a lot of time putting together these, great campaigns and hoping to get some marketing qualified leads that our salespeople can turn into sales qualified leads. So just being able to prioritize my week to know when I'm going to need to block some time out to do the follow up and be available. And then, also being ready to just respond on the fly because that happens a lot in sales. So when I get those Slack notifications about the right things that I care about, like Kayla was talking about, it makes me get my butt right in gear and say, okay, I need to hop on the phone with Bob Joe, and because he just spent 15 minutes on our website. So that's where my mind goes to, is it just makes it for a win-win-win for all involved.
All right. Well, that I think those are, great examples. So I'm going to ask, um, for people that are setting up a CRM or trying to level up their CRM so it's more useful, what would you both share as, a couple of things that are maybe overlooked but very valuable for driving revenue, new business or retained business? Kayla, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I love tracking, marketing touches and lead sources. So I think really understanding what's bringing people in, and then also what they last interacted with before an opportunity is becoming, viable, or before they're having a conversation with you. I had a client previously who had an e-commerce product that had a much longer than expected sales cycle, and once those deals started to close, we saw that a lot of times their first touch was as long as 18 months ago. But then, really looking at what was the content that got us on their radar, and then what was the content that actually made them convert, and really compressing those to shorten that sales cycle as much as we could was super valuable intelligence. I had another client that used to kind of consolidate all that into what they called a last interesting moment field in their CRM. So it was just like, I don't care what it was, but these are the things I care about, and this is what I'm gonna push out to sales. So I think anything that helps the sales team understand how are people coming to us, and then can indicate what types of conversations are they likely to want to have with us, what do they know about us already, just really sets the sales team up for having a more impactful conversation.
Yeah. Dana, what would you share? What do you think are the most important things?
Yeah, so just a few. I mean, I kind of agree also on the lead source. Really even getting granular on the ROI on it. I noted that I spend a lot of time networking, so I want to be paying attention to, those networking leads, those referral leads with my strategic partners, so that I know, where I'm spending my time is useful. Another metric I think of is kind of, Kayla's kind of talked about it a little bit too, but the time that these opportunities that are in whatever stages. So I shared a little bit about it before, but we previously would just track pretty much from proposal to close, and that there's a lot of missing parts there, basically from the first discovery meeting to close, I would say, to back up a little. But in the past few years now at Red Caffeine, we've been looking more at those, first coffees, introductions that we've made to other people that are going to be valuable for them, inviting them to industry events, lunches, sharing things like this business as unusual. And then lastly, I want to also call out, like, not only just what deals you're winning, but by their persona or inner industry. So what types of people are saying yes to you, and what industries are they in? Because that's where you're going to want to focus on building your assets to amplify your sales team to go after more deals like that.
Yeah, I think that's so like I bet Kayla would also, say that when we do intake discovery with clients, a lot of times they're like, we're selling into this industry, like the 15 different industries. Yes, we're, in all these, and then we get the sales data and we're like, you're really selling into these top two industries. That's where most of your deals come from. Maybe you have an outlier that is bringing a lot of revenue, but they may be like a, one hit wonder and really not your market. So it is very interesting to go by industry as well as like those macro trends like all of our clients are in manufacturing, or all of our clients are in professional services. We're seeing, real ebbs and flows in the types of industries that are buying now. And so how do we, react to those market insights in a stronger way when we might have thought we should be selling here? We really need to, use that data to kind of redirect or pivot our strategy. You may still be able to use some of the components of a campaign in a different vertical if that's where the opportunities are coming from. So great stuff.
Exactly.
So, thinking about speaking the language of business, you know, how do we train our clients team and our own internal team to speak those languages of business? Kayla, I'm thinking kind of about customer lifetime value or MRR, things like that. What are you guys doing in the prep process with clients to help them really understand those types of variances or nuances in the right focus on the right types of deals?
Yeah, I think we're starting with really understanding like what are their growth goals and which of those metrics do they care about? Do they want a lot of big deals that are really unpredictable, or do they really want that fixed monthly recurring revenue? They want that predictability and understanding not only what's important to them as a company, but then can you actually measure it? And that in a lot of cases it is kind of a big if of like can we actually pull this from wherever the buying is happening into a screen or a point where the sales team has access to be able to look at an account level to see how their account is tracking towards those goals. So, understanding where those priorities are, building in the measurements, and then helping sales identify through dashboards or through proactive notifications, like where are those best fit accounts that are in a position to hit those targets. I think a lot of it too comes down to the sales team being open to thinking about more than, I think you said it earlier, Dana, of like more than just closing the deal, like closing a deal that's going to have a, partnership in perpetuity, but like have that long standing relationship with us in a way that's gonna um, really impact the growth of the business.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot about the approach of going after everything equally. And I do think that we've seen that happen a lot with clients where, every opportunity is a good opportunity. And it really, when you break it down, you're like, well, these are really high value opportunities that require human time, and these are a little bit, still important to the revenue mix, but could be served via e-commerce or other more automated solutions. And so like making sure that, we're clear on those insights and then, really informing the team as to why. Like, don't go after this type of work because we've got a really low margin. We'd rather you focus on, maybe it's a longer sales cycle, but selling a new piece of equipment because that's a much more profitable sale for us. Dana, what are your thoughts here? Well, like, what has helped
Yeah.
you level up?
Yeah, I mean, really, I completely agree with everything Kayla was saying because it just really helps us reps have that mind shift from quota chasing to, building legacy, right? So, you know, salespeople, we can't just be thinking in terms of leads anymore. We really need to be knowing what kind of deals are profitable. We need to understand long-term value of a customer and align our efforts to business goals, not just our personal quota. I mean, that's where the magic is going to happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree. All right, well, I'm going to close it out with one final question about like kind of looking forward or, looking at something that we've seen done in the past in terms of tech adoption or CRM adoption or underutilization. What is one of the first things you suggest people fix or focus on to kind of level up?
Yeah, I would say to start with just understanding what the blockers are, if there are any, to having accurate and complete data in your CRM. So is it an integration that's broken that needs to be fixed? Is it, do you need to like bring in another source? Like, no one's filling in industry data. Okay, let's bring in a Zoom info to just append that automatically. Are there problems you can solve at the data quality stage? Because with any new tech adoption, as soon as that information is inaccurate, as soon as you can't trust it, salespeople are problem solvers. They're going to find a workaround. They're going to find another way to do their job without using technology and tools that they can't trust, and rightfully so. And so like making sure that that CRM can really be a source of truth in a way that everyone can count on, and whatever blockers you need to kind of tear down to get there is, I think, well worth it, because it's a very hard battle to get back to trusting a CRM once you've had a couple experiences where like, well, that lead's not even in there, or that main contact left 5 years ago, or every single record has do not contact after the name, or something, kind of some kind of workaround, and then you're immediately like, okay, this is garbage. I can't use this anymore. So that would be my one advice, of just whatever it takes to make that data true and accurate and consistent. Take the time to do that well, and that's going to bring the most value to your team and set the standard for consistent utilization moving forward.
Yeah, Dana, as a seller, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with everything Kayla just said. Like keeping everything clean and making sure that you're just getting rid of things that you're not actually using are super important. But some things that I have been doing recently that have been really helpful for me is, we're all on these mobile devices all the time, right? Like we use them every day, daily. So when I have that first meeting, I do a lot of like in-person meetings. So I've been recording things about these meetings right away, fresh, while they're in my mind, like things that I'm learning about them. I do tend to have a longer sales cycle, so it's important for me to remember all those things about people and put that right into my CRM right away. So just really staying consistent. Once you've built what Kayla has described, finding ways to help yourself stay consistent, blocking your calendar for 15 minutes to a half hour after a sales call so you can have the time to do those things. And really you just start with one thing and build from there. You don't have to do all of this overnight. We always say at Red Caffeine to just start small, start with one thing, one metric, and build from there.
Yeah, we had a client that said just getting 1% better every day. I love that, like building block. I think that was, really a good way to think about it. It's a journey. It's not going to, you're not going to go from 0 to 100 in a week. You are going to go on a journey. And I think that we found that that is probably the best way to really go deep in tech adoption, is to start small and then evolve over time, and really show people meaningful things that you're getting from that investment of their time, as well as being willing to say, like, let's quit tracking this because it really is not doing anything to grow our business or improve your sales outcomes. So all right. Well, thank you guys so much. This has been really, really fun. I mean, I get to talk to you both a lot, but it really is great to like have this depthy conversation about a topic that I'm very passionate about, sales. And so if you are in our audience today or viewing this, and you want to have a further conversation with Kayla or Dayna, here's their information. Feel free to reach out to them via email or their LinkedIn accounts, and just make sure to say that you saw them on Business as Unusual so they know that it's coming from there, as we're tracking our lead sources or our network growth sources. We want to know, that insight as well. As always, I want to give a special shout out to our sponsors. So we've got HR Source, and they are really that go-to resource for employers. They've got an HR hotline, an exchange survey data, and the most current and accurate, reliable compensation survey available, in addition to legal services and fractional HR staffing resources. So really, really great group of humans and we frequently have Mary Lynn on Business as Unusual. And then as well, M3 Learning, and that's Tom Latouré. M3 Learning is one of the most influential and successful sales management and training companies worldwide. They're really building those sales superstars, and we love having Tom on. He was just on a very recent episode of Business as Unusual. So what's next? What's coming up next for BAU? And our next event is featuring another Red Caffeiner, or partner to Red Caffeine. We are going to be featuring Scott Peterson. He is a sales enablement and sales expert, and he is going to be really helping us go deeper into some of our sales insights. So we're really understanding and defining who our best clients are, as well as growing our relationships and focus to attract those types of clients. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to define your ideal client profile, and it's probably likely different than you've done in before. We're gonna help you walk away with some tools and frameworks to really understand where your best deals are coming from. When we do this exercise with clients, it's so interesting what they think in the beginning of the conversation and where they start to move people as we think about who is truly a blue chip profile versus who's dirty money, or some of the other categories that Scott will walk us through in his framework. So really excited to have him on August 14th, the part 2 of this revenue reset conversation. So with that, again, I want to thank Kayla and Dayna. We really appreciated your time today, and I learned something. I always do. So it was really fun to have you both join me today. And thank you to our attendees as well. So if you've got any questions about sales or CRM, feel free to reach out to me or anybody else on the Red Caffeine team. We're happy to answer those questions for you. And with that, we're going to say goodbye and thank you for joining us today.